Not just allies, but also brothers. Paraguay's new president sends a message of solidarity to Taipei at his swearing-in ceremony. The missile malfunction that's raising serious questions about Taiwan's defense capabilities. Health inspectors hunt for the source of a so-called brain-eating amoeba that's killed a Taipei woman. Taiwan's plan to make sure makers of its famous Kaoliang liquor will never run dry of the spirit's main ingredient. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Philip Broussard. Taiwan's Vice President Lai Ching-te is in Paraguay, Taiwan's last remaining South American diplomatic ally. Sally Jensen reports from the capital, Asunción, on the two countries' long friendship and whether it will hold.
A handshake, cementing 66 years of friendship. Taiwan's vice president and presidential hopeful Lai Ching-te has traveled to the other side of the world to attend new Paraguayan President Santiago Peña's inauguration. Both politicians hope to consolidate their countries' mutual commitment in the face of increased diplomatic pressure from China, which forbids countries it has relations with from recognizing Taiwan. It sees the island nation as part of its own territory. Paraguay is Taiwan's last remaining diplomatic ally in South America and one of its oldest. The antipodal countries have held ties for most of the last century. Neighbors Honduras and Nicaragua switched ties from Taipei to Beijing in 2021, leaving Taiwan with only 13 official allies, half the number it was 20 years ago. Like Taiwan's other allies, Paraguay is a developing country, and Taiwan has a lot to offer it. Scholarships, medical and technological aid, and investments in Paraguay's small and medium firms. The Paraguayans who benefit recognize Taiwan's contribution in these areas.
Entonces esto muestra que sí es el paso correcto avanzar hacia el desarrollo y avanzar juntos con Taiwán hacia este desarrollo y el del sistema de salud que tanto añoramos y necesitamos acá en Paraguay.
But China is investing heavily in South America, building roads and mines, developing ports, and buying beef and soy. Many of the region's countries are willing to recognize China over Taiwan to benefit from these projects. Agricultural representative Neversindo Cordeiro says Paraguay's diplomatic choice has them missing out on the larger Chinese market.
El sueño de todos los países es vender a China porque China tiene volumen, China es el mayor comprador de carne del mundo, pero por motivos diplomáticos no podemos vender a China.
Analysts say commerce is one area China might offer Paraguay a diplomatic carrot.
The most obvious issue in which Paraguay can benefit from the change of recognition to China is at the commercial level, since the potential Chinese market is huge and is not comparable with what Taiwan can give.
Paraguay's new president, Santiago Peña, reaffirmed his support for the island nation, pledging to continue the long-standing alliance.
Con la República de China, Taiwán es una muestra de esto y del espíritu amigable y cooperativo de Paraguay con naciones a las que tenemos un gran afecto y con quienes nos sentimos no solo aliados, sino que también hermanos.
At home, he represents a continuation of the old as the leader of a party that has ruled for all but 5 of the last 76 years. There could be a similar sense of continuity in Taiwan if Vice President Lai, the ruling party's candidate, wins the presidency in January. His visit to Paraguay and his attendance at this inauguration aim to consolidate ties and demonstrate that the two countries, though a world apart, remain committed to their alliance. Scott Huang and Sally Jensen in Asunción for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's military is looking into why a missile launched from one of its main defense systems exploded prematurely before hitting its target. Tuesday's malfunction is raising questions about what is one of the country's most important defense assets. Hamio Khan explains.
Taiwan's military testing one of its missile defense systems when all of a sudden The missile explodes before it hits its target. Now the military is investigating why one of its most advanced systems didn't perform as expected.
的原因跟它的这个后续的情况，我们还要再做进一步的查证。所以不管这个弹药射击的情况好或坏，那操作的表现正常或异常，我们都会详细记录分析，作为后续战备准备的依据。
Taiwan was testing a U.S.-made Patriot missile defense system, one of the country's primary weapons against missiles and aircraft. Data shows that more than 70% of Taiwan's population is protected by one of these systems, with several launchers spread across the island. And although the military hasn't said Tuesday's test failure is a cause for concern, some analysts are highlighting the system's age.
试射的是属于旧型爱国者2型飞弹，大概都有20年以上的时间了。本身的药柱问题、资料链传输的问题，还有可能是受到一些干扰。
Missile and air defense are some of the most important parts to an overall defense strategy. Beijing continues to threaten Taiwan with invasion to bring it under its control. And China's arsenal of advanced ballistic missiles and bomber fleet have the firepower to knock out the majority of Taiwan's military. China previewed what that would look like when then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan last summer. It fired 9 missiles into the waters near Taiwan, including one that passed over the island. Taiwan hopes systems like the older Patriot 2 and the newer Patriot 3 can counter this threat.
Taiwanese forces will, by and large, be relying on themselves to defend the island in the initial days, potentially even longer part of that conflict. If they cannot hold the line, then the likelihood is that Taiwan will go.
Taiwan's defense budget is due to be reviewed at the end of August. And although systems like tanks and fighter jets may look flashy, Taiwan's military will also be eyeing up weapons like the Patriot that few will ever see, but play a vital role in keeping the country safe. Howard Zhang and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is the biggest target of cyberattacks in the whole Asia-Pacific region, with 15,000 of them every second. US-based information security company Fortinet says attacks against Taiwan account for more than half of all incidents in the region, and they're up about 80% over last year. Fortinet warns hackers are changing their approach and using more targeted attacks to maximize damage. The company says Taiwanese businesses should use AI and automated systems to stay ahead of the attackers. China's defense minister is visiting Russia and Belarus in a demonstration of Beijing's support for Moscow. Li Shangfu attended the annual Moscow Conference on International Security on Tuesday. His visit comes soon after Russian state media used the word Axis to describe the relationship between Moscow, Minsk, and Beijing. The two Eastern European countries have been largely isolated by mainly Western nations since Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year. Li said that China and Russia's military cooperation does not target any other nation. However, he warned the West against getting involved in Taiwan. To learn more about what the Chinese defense minister's visit to Russia and Belarus could mean for each country, our reporter Sam Hui spoke to Tamkang University's Institute of International Affairs and Strategic Studies Assistant Professor Lin Yingyu.
Why is Li Shangfu, China's defense minister, visiting Russia and Belarus?
李尚福出访，他其实主要还是偏向一个军事外交。但是你说这个是不是代表中国就希望去强化跟俄罗斯跟白俄罗斯的合作，借此对抗美国为首的东亚盟邦？我觉得这两个是要分开来看，因为中国跟白俄罗斯跟俄罗斯的互动，但是不一定会代表他就是要去造成其他国家的威胁。你说他当然现在是不是在站队或拉帮结派，或者是在这个时候他会需要全球他的国际上的支持，这一点是对的。但是你说他是不是要去塑造一个两极的世界，我觉得这一点可能还没有到达。
What kind of military cooperation is China seeking from Russia?
他不会去提供攻击性武器给这两个国家。那这里的话，其实就可以去看到的是，当中国在这个时候，他能提供什么给这两个国家？我个人会认为比较有可能的，可能会是在商用无人机的技术，或是一些急救的人道救援、粮食或急救的包等等这一类的东西。那他透过这些东西，或许可以去换取一些 俄罗斯跟白俄罗斯这一方面，在一些不管军事合作或技术合作上面的更多的承诺，比如说像现在俄罗斯不管是在战斗机、发动机，甚至是在反弹道飞弹的一个卫星追踪技术上面，这一些其实都是中国他会希望从俄罗斯跟白俄罗斯这边拿到的。
What can China learn from such cooperation?
特别是在这一次俄乌战争里面，我们看到美军跟北约到现在都还是只有把物资跟武器提供给乌克兰部队，并没有实兵介入。那也同样的，美国透过不管是这一个 RC-135啦，或者是这一个E3啊等等各式各样的电子征收机，在乌克兰周围的飞行，源源不绝的把电子讯号提供给乌克兰的部队，让它进行打击。这样的作战模式是有可能在未来的台海中间出现的。所以现在的解放军或北京，他会希望透过俄乌战争的经验来强化自己面对下一场战争。
That was Tamkang University Assistant Professor Lin Yingyu speaking to our reporter Sam Hui. Officials are hunting for a tiny aquatic bug, often called the brain-eating amoeba. That's after a Taipei woman died from an infection 2 weeks ago. John Van Trieste has more.
Health inspectors in New Taipei are on a rare mission. They think this local indoor water park might harbor a deadly microscopic creature, one that hasn't been seen in Taiwan in over a decade. Known to scientists as Negleria fowleri, it's more commonly known as the brain-eating amoeba. A woman who recently swam here was infected by the bug, which lives in warm, stagnant water. She died August 1st, making hers the first fatal case in Taiwan in 12 years. Inspectors have shut the place down and ordered it disinfected. They've also contacted over 600 recent visitors. So far, no one else has shown signs of infection. To figure out what happened, they're testing water samples. The first batch has come back negative, but it could be Monday before the results for all 56 samples come in.
裁剪是指阴性，是不是代表其他的一个水质也是水质检验的结果是阴性？这个没有办法确认。我们是在不同的一个位置来做一些相关的一些裁剪。那我们希望呢，这些裁剪的一个位置呢，能够涵盖大部分的一个范围。
The death rate among those infected is nearly 100%, but infection is rare, caused when contaminated water gets in the nose.
它主要会沉积在这个池底或湖的底下。所以尽量是避免去搅动这个底部的池水或淤泥，跑到就是水面比较高的地方，然后造成有可能进入鼻腔而造成感染。
The authorities are urging people to be aware of the risk, but also to stay calm as health officials look for the source of infection. Andy Xue and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
To learn more about the so-called brain-eating amoeba and what risk it poses to public health, John Van Trieste spoke to a tropical medicine expert at National Yangming Jiaotong University, Professor Ji Dade.
So what is a so-called brain-eating amoeba and where can they be found?
它主要的一个分布是在水 water body 或者是 soil 在土壤里头。它在自然的环境它是正常就会存在的。在环境的分布来讲，就是rare 不是很多。那可是就是它是一个 random 的一个分布。
So what does it take to get infected by one of these brain-eating amoeba, and what are the symptoms?
就从嗅神经走远，然后直接从鼻腔，然后到脑部。一般来讲会有头痛 headaches, fever， 然后那个恶心，好，然后晚期开始会有那个颈部会有僵直，然后 confusion 就是思考混乱，然后开始会有loss of balance。然后开始会有一些幻觉，好，那个hallucination。过去从美国或其他一些研究发现 ，usually is the 1 to 3 ppm is enough for cure the trophoniform。它只是偶发的事件，所以民众不要恐慌。
That was National Yangming Jiaotong University Professor Ji Dade speaking with our reporter John Van Trieste. Dengue infections are on the rise in Taiwan, with almost 500 new cases reported in the past week. It's an increase that's partially brought on by changes in the weather. Harel Hughes has this report.
High fever, skin rash, painful joints and eyes. These are all symptoms of dengue fever, a mosquito-borne disease. In the past 50 years, there has been a 30-fold rise in the number of dengue cases around the world. What is fueling the increase? A large part is due to extreme weather events.
As we expect the temperature to increase and the changes in precipitation, what we are creating is ideal conditions for the mosquitoes to breed, and also ideal conditions for the mosquitoes and the population dynamics of the mosquito to accelerate.
Mosquito-borne diseases are increasing globally. It's a problem that humanitarian organizations have been trying to combat for decades. But as extreme weather events become more common, parts of the world that haven't had to deal with such diseases before are left completely unprepared for their spread.
What has happened is that now what we have is some of these vector-borne diseases are reaching to new areas when they were non-existent or where they were non-existent on a permanent basis. So what we have is that in places where there were no mosquitoes or there were no diseases, the public health system is, in many cases, unprepared.
This past year, Taiwan saw its worst drought in a century, followed by consecutive typhoons. The weather events led to landslides, flooding, and lots of standing water, which is ideal for mosquito breeding. Local officials are urging residents to be vigilant in working to stop the spread.
近期持续有降雨的情形，呼吁民众雨后应立即进行我们住家内外环境的整顿与滋生源清除。
The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies predicts that by 2050, 70% of dengue cases will be in the Asia-Pacific region, and the rise in extreme weather events is set to make the situation worse. John Su and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, what's the story behind this dinosaur skull? A Taiwanese fossil restorer tells us what he dug up. Stay tuned.
我75岁，现在还在创业中。
我是用生命在做事，然后要做的话，我就永不放弃。
我们想要成为世界的品牌，站在世界的舞台。
一定要新的才有。
我们自己肯定自己的价值。
透过我们的文化创意，从台湾这个点画出去。
你是 MIT 的？
我是 Made in Taiwan。
Taiwanese Boss, every Wednesday 8:10 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
For more stories from the Tech Hub, Taiwan, and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. $400 million profit, but no pay rise for workers. That's the complaint from staff at EVA Air, Taiwan's second largest airline. The workers' union says business has boomed since last year when Taiwan lifted its last COVID-19 travel restrictions. But unlike other airlines, EVA has not boosted workers' pay or handed out bonuses. The union wants EVA to sit down to talks and raise monthly salaries by at least $160. EVA says it will handle pay raises according to the law. The airline is no stranger to industrial action. In 2019, a flight attendant strike forced EVA to cancel more than 2,000 flights. Kaoliang liquor is Taiwan's best-known spirit, but the sorghum used to make it is mainly imported from China. Now Taiwanese farmers are trying to make their own. Louise Watt reports.
This is sorghum, a cereal used to make Kaoliang, an as high as 58% proof fermented spirit that's considered Taiwan's national liquor. The country imports most of its sorghum from China. But in fields like these, Taiwanese farmers are now trying to grow more of their own. The Farmers Association has joined forces with Jinmen Distillery, a county government-owned company that makes Taiwan's best-known Kaoliang. It's launching its first 100% Taiwan-made sorghum liquor, following a 3-year partnership with farmers.
6个农会呢，1100万公斤左右。那今年估计到明年应该会翻倍。
That's still far short of the tens of thousands of tons of sorghum Taiwan imports each year. But for the farmers, it's not about reducing imports. Some rice farmers are turning to sorghum to deal with water shortages in their areas.
在水不够的状态之下，它靠一些雨水仍然可以生长，所以说农民也非常肯定说，为了在气候变迁条件不佳的状况之下，高粱的这个杂粮是我们水稻转型的另外一条路。
As well as needing less water than rice, Taiwan's agriculture ministry says growing sorghum can save on labour costs. It's also offering a 50% subsidy to help farmers' associations set up storage facilities and buy machinery, hoping this will encourage Taiwanese farmers to get into the spirit of growing sorghum. Klein Wong and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
For the first time, Taiwan's investments in Southeast Asian countries, India, and other partners have surpassed those in China. In the first half of this year, Taiwan invested $1.9 billion in China, but over $2 billion went to 18 countries under its new southbound policy. This includes all 10 ASEAN members like Singapore and Thailand, and also India, Australia, and New Zealand, among other countries. It's a sign of Taiwan's shifting trade strategy, which aims to reduce economic dependence on China. Several Taiwanese electronics companies have also started building manufacturing clusters in Southeast Asia. Taiwan is observing Ghost Month. In folk tradition, it's when the spirits of the underworld are said to return to the human realm. Bing Wang reports.
As the clock strikes 11, the door to the underworld opens. It's Ghost Month here in Taiwan, or the 7th month of the lunar calendar. It's observed in much of the Chinese-speaking world, including Singapore, Malaysia, and parts of China. Across Taiwan, temples hold events to let out the spirits for a month. People leave out piles of food offerings for the spirits to ask for their blessing. Some even burn fake money to wish the deceased a good life in the underworld. In some parts of Taiwan, including Yilan on the east coast, events include releasing floating lanterns on the water to receive the ghosts. Once the spirits are let out, the bells and drums in temples are sealed in order to not disturb or frighten the spirits. But as the month includes rituals and traditions, it also comes with taboos.
不要结婚，很多好兄弟都还没有结婚就去世，在鬼月结婚会招来好兄弟的嫉妒。不要开市，鬼月开市不是好的开始。
But regardless of religious beliefs, if one has a general attitude of respect for the spirits, or good brothers as they're referred to here, they should be able to navigate Ghost Month with ease. Justin Wu and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Not everyone loves their job, but for one man in Taipei, his profession is quite literally in his bones. Joyce Zhang has this report on the fossil repairer who cleans up some of the world's rarest dinosaur remains.
What you're looking at is the world's only triceratops skull with the flesh on its cheek still intact. It's one of Taiwanese paleontologist Xiao Yufu's most prized possessions. The skull was unearthed in the U.S. state of Montana and was shipped to Xiao's studio in Taiwan to be cleaned up and restored.
可以看到这个皮肤的这个纹路，就是一条一条，然后层状的那个褶皱，然后堆积在这边。
Xiao loved dinosaurs from childhood. At 21, he left Taiwan for Germany to learn about fossil restoration. He now has over 30 years' experience handling some of the world's most precious prehistoric remains. Another treasured find is this skull. It's also from a triceratops discovered in Montana, and it's the most complete skull of this type of dinosaur. Xiao says when he's digging out the bones, it's the stories that are unearthed with them that he finds the most fascinating.
可能是被暴龙这样大口咬掉了以后，然后它没有因为这样子就死亡。像这边就有被食肉龙类的爪去抓的痕迹。你看这个是爪尖，就这样子扣着。 3个这样扣着这样抓的痕迹。
Once Xiao finishes examining and restoring the fossils, some are sent back overseas to museums or private collectors. Others go up for auction. Xiao says it's a true international effort, given that dinosaurs and other creatures from the Mesozoic period did not exist in the part of the world where Taiwan is today.
你就必须跟像在美国挖掘团队、德国、法国、英国，就各国，就这些他们在挖掘的团队有很深的这个合作关系。
Xiao has also trained up a team of fossil restorers to work with him, including his son. They've also taken on local projects like preserving the remains of a blue whale, the first to be found beached on the shores of Taiwan in 2020. Its 20-meter-long skeleton is now at a marine biology museum in the southern county of Pingtung. And it's thanks to careful and patient restorers like Xiao that such rare fossils can make it to some of the most visited museums around the world, unearthing stories along with the bones. Patrick Chen and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
A Formosan black bear nicknamed Li Gaowan has been released back into the wild. The 3-year-old male was rescued after being caught in a snare trap in southeastern Taidong County in April. An operation removed part of his paw, and afterwards Li Gaowan made a smooth recovery. Indigenous residents of the area also made a blessing before the bear was released back into the wild. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally today, we leave you with images of misty Taroko Gorge in the mountains of eastern Hualien County. I'm Philip Broussard. Take care and see you next time.